Alright guys, welcome to third species counterpoint. So we are doing the last counterpoint that we'll go over for the semester. So far we've gone first species, which is a whole note against a whole note, second species, which is 2 half notes against a whole note, and now we are going to do third, which is 4 quarter notes against a whole note for the baseline being the whole note and then our melody being quarter notes, right? So I'm going to first do this half, which will go over all of the rules, just kind of like my last video, and then I will do a second, I think I'm just going to upload a second video going through an actual example of counterpoint, okay? So here we have a D. I'm just like leaving one note for the cantus, you know, you can pretend that there's obviously going to be more, but this is just to kind of show you a couple of different rules that we can follow, okay? So, you know, in second species, we talked about how this one is our strong beat, and then this one is our weak beat, right? I mean, so actually with 4 quarter notes, we have a little bit of a difference, and that's going to be in what is strong and what is weak, okay? So, here, let's say that we have 4 quarter notes per measure, which is what we're going to have, right? So there's going to be a little bit of a difference. This is considered a strong beat. This is weak. This one's strong, and then this one's weak, okay? This one is strongest in the measure. So this strong is stronger than that one. And then these two are just equally weak. So those are just considered weak beats. And then this is the very strong one, and then this is also a strong beat, okay? So that'll come into play with a couple of rules coming up, okay? So you just have to remember that 2 and 4 are weak, and then number 1 is the strongest, and then 3 is also strong, okay? Hopefully that is good. Let's see, when we start, you have your choice. You can actually put a rest in any place that you would like. In the first measure only, there's no other rest permitted, right? So you can start right on beat 1, like what I just had written was the 4 quarter notes. You can put a rest here and continue and start on beat 2 if you would like. But remember that this is now a weak beat still. So this is still considered strong, weak, right? Yeah, you can also put a half rest, right? Half rest. And then start on beat 3 if you want, and then continue on writing that way. Or you can also do 3 beats of rest, so that would be a half rest plus a quarter rest, and then just start on beat 4, and then continue on that way. So whatever your preference is, again, that's like a combination of compositional preference, and also maybe if you have to like puzzle something out prior to that. So rests are permitted only in the first measure, and you can choose whichever beat you would like to start on. They're all permitted, okay? Just a couple reminders that do bleed over. There is no repeating notes, so you can't go D and then a D. You could go D, E, D if you wanted to. That's okay, right? We'll talk about dissonances and what's allowed and what's not coming up. But just no repeated notes together. The same rule applies, do not leap over your bar line. So let's say that we have this as our first measure, right? And then your only options from this A is to go to a G or a B, okay? So no leaping over the bar line. Make sure that you are always stepping over the bar line, always stepwise motion. Within this measure you can leap, and we'll talk about that, but I just wanted to talk about there's no jumping over your bar line. Okay, what else do we have? If you are going to leap a 4th or greater, please fill in your leap still. So if you're on a D and you jump down a 4th to an A, please step back up, right? So you're filling in or correcting your leap, right? Same with if you're on a D and you jumped up to a G, please step down into that, right? So if it's a 4th or greater, if it's a 3rd, it's okay, right? So if you go F, it's okay if you keep stepping up, right, because that's a 3rd. Just make sure if it's a 4th or greater that you're correcting or filling in your leap. That's still the same thing. Okay, I just want to make sure. Again, still Same idea here that comes from second species is make sure all of your intervals between your melody notes are major, minor, perfect, but no augmented sevenths or anything like that, or sorry, augmented fifths or tritones. So make sure that melodically you're not skipping into a tritone, which actually we just caught in class earlier today and everything. So that's just still friendly reminder that is coming from second into third. One thing different is you have to make sure, we still need a high point, just like in first and second species. So you need one note that is the highest for the whole line. That needs to be on a strong beat. So that means that your high point has to either be on beat 1, which is a strong beat. This is weak, right? Or 3, which is a strong beat. So your high point can only land on those guys. That's because your high point isn't going to be like really heard unless it's on a strong beat. So just keep that in mind. You'll find that it's actually not too hard to accomplish. I know it might sound like it's kind of difficult to be like, how do I ensure that my high point is going to be on beat 1 or 3? But I find third species actually has a little bit more freedom in writing than the other ones. So you'll see it's actually not as hard as it might seem, which is good. I believe that is, that's my first couple of rules I wanted to go through. A lot of them are, again, the same as second species. Again, same as second species and first species, you can only have your first note being scale degree 1 or 5. So that means here, this can only be a D or an A, right? So here I had D. Actually, all of my examples prior to this, I was starting on a D. But you could also start on A, and you can start on whatever beat you want. So if you want to do A, or if you want to do beat 2A, that's fine, right? If you want to do beat 3A or beat 4A, that's okay. And then your cadences here, let's say that we, right? And then we have our two last measures. Let's say that it goes E and then D. These are our last two measures, okay? So we're going to talk about the cadence for a moment. Again, always end on a whole note and always end on tonic. So that's really easy to fill in. You can always like do that first because you just identify your key, throw in that tonic note or scale degree 1, D, right? And that's that. Cadence patterns are the same. So if you have, let's say 6, 7, 1, you just do it in quarter notes prior to that, and then you can actually just connect these two quarter notes with whatever you want, right? So this would be 6, 7, 1, right? And just make sure that your intervals are okay. So here 5, 6, 8, yeah, that's totally fine, right? If it is a like 7, 7, 1 or a 2, 2, 1, it would actually just be a half note here, and earlier in the measure will be quarter notes, right? So it just kind of adds up, right? So, and then this would be like 7, 7, 1 considered. So it's the same as like what we did in second species, where you kind of consolidate the two quarter notes into a half note, which just like makes sense. So then this would be 6, 8, that's okay. And then just fill in the rest of your cadence there. So your cadence is actually just like really small, really short amount of time. Again though, same cadence patterns as before, so you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to worry about like memorizing a new set of 3, 2, 1, 7, 7, 1, 1, 7, 1, whatever you need. It's just that you can do a half note instead of two quarter notes, and then just fill in the rest of the measure depending on where you're coming from and what you need to do. All right, so that's cadences. Again, with cadences, remember, I'm just going to say it again, make sure that the numbers 1, 7, 1 up here or something like that has to do with the scale degrees. So that would be 1, 7, 1 in this case, right? Which it could work if we do it the right way, right? Not the numbers in between here, right? So then you want to check these numbers. This is actually a 6 and then that's a 7. Okay? So just make sure that those numbers have to do with your scale degrees. All right, so that's cadences. All right, I'm gonna erase this and we're gonna go back to a couple other rules over here. Again, I'm just gonna leave that D. We are going to talk about what needs to be consonant and what can be dissonant, okay? So beat one of every measure needs to be consonant. So that means every single first beat that lines up right here with your whole note needs to be consonant, and that counts for 3, 5, 6, or 8, just like what we have been doing, okay? Now the other 3 beats have some options, and yes, that does include beat 3, which we are considering a strong beat, okay? But again, beat 1 is the strongest beat of the whole measure, so that needs to be consonant no matter what. So 3, 5, 6, or 8 on your first beat. Beat 2, 3, and 4 may be dissonant, and there are 4 cases as to how these can be dissonant. So there's only 4 ways that we can make them dissonant. So in second species, there was only one time that we could have a dissonance, right? That was only if it was a weak beat and it was a passing tone, right? Here we actually have 4 different possibilities to make a dissonance, which actually, again, this is why third species is actually a little bit easier to write, okay? So I'm gonna go through an example of every single one of those 4 cases, okay? So we first have our passing tone, which we are familiar with, okay? So we can do, let's say this is our first measure, right? D, that's an octave. You're starting on scale degree 1, right? Passing tone, right? No big deal. We've already seen this before. It's just shrunken down into quarter notes. So here is your dissonance right here. It's a 7, but you're passing right into a consonant. All right, and then you can continue on from there, whatever you feel like. You could do an A there if you wanted, and then continue writing or whatever. Okay, so passing tone is accepted here, and it can actually be on any beat. So actually, if you wanted to write, let's say, let's do D, which is, again, an octave, that's okay. Let's jump down to a B, which is a 6, that's okay. You can actually do a passing tone on beat 3, and that's all right, and that's 7, and then you would have to go into 8, right? So that's a passing tone dissonance on beat 3, and that's all right. And then last but not least, you can actually have a passing tone dissonance on beat 4. So maybe an example of that, actually really simply, if this is your first measure, you could do a half rest if you wanted to. Start on beat 3 and actually have a passing tone dissonance into here, right? So that would be 8, 7, and then into that B. I don't know what this cantus note is, but regardless, I'm just showing you that your passing note dissonance can be on any of the beats 2, 3, or 4. Again, no dissonance on beat 1, all right? So that can go anywhere, and also the passing tone can go in any direction. So here, I mean, I was just showing you that C is a 7th, and that's dissonant, but you could do an octave and pass up. That's okay too. Again, this is on beat 2, but you could push it. You could do a passing note on beat 3 or 4, as long as it's a passing tone. Sometimes what helps me with all of these things is to actually maybe even circle it and label it as a passing tone. It depends on whatever you want to do, just to kind of keep yourself on track. So passing tone is one of the 4 cases of dissonant that we can use, okay? The next one, actually, we never talked about this in second species, because again, second species, you could only do a passing tone. Here we can actually do neighbor tones, which is really cool. Yeah, so it's exactly what it sounds like. So again, let's say we start on D, it's an octave, right? You can do a neighbor below and go right back, 7, 8. This is not considered parallel octaves, because this is actually like oblique motion, right? Because it's not like this is a D and a D going to like an E and an E. This is just a D and a D going to a D and a D, right? So your ear isn't going to hear a parallel octave. You're going to probably hear more of like oblique motion than anything else. So actually, yes, this is a strong beat and a strong beat, and that's an octave and an octave, but this is okay, all right? So that's a neighbor tone dissonance that we have here. It goes down and back up, neighbor tone dissonance. So that means also these are always stepwise. Just like our passing tone was stepwise up, this is just like go down and then go right back up, right? You can also have a neighbor tone above. So that's a lower neighbor. This will be an upper neighbor. Again, 8 to 8, totally fine. Neighbor is all right. Yep, and Oh yeah, the neighbor tone can only happen on beats 2 or 4 on those weak beats, okay? So just like a friendly reminder, passing tone is okay on 2, 3, or 4 for the beats, for beats 2, 3, or 4. Neighbor tone is only okay on 2 and 4. So that means the strong beat 3 can't have a neighbor tone. So that means like what I just showed you is totally okay because that was beat 2, but you can't have a neighbor tone. Let's say if you wanted to do this, you are not allowed to have your neighbor tone, this is 6, 7, 6, on beat 3. All right, so you just want to be careful of that. Passing tone on that beat is okay. Neighbor tone, not okay. All right, so just kind of be careful of that. I know that's a little bit tricky. So I'll show you an example of one where, let's say it would go passing into a consonant here. So you have your passing tone dissonant, right? And that's okay, it's on beat 2, doesn't matter. And then let's say that you want to neighbor it up and then go right back to a B, right? That's actually okay. I mean, this isn't the best writing because you're, you know, da, 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 right? It's not that exciting, but that's okay, right? It's just the biggest thing is that you can't have a neighbor tone on beat 3. And neighbor tone is just going up and back down. So actually, if you wanted to, oh, well, you could neighbor below, but that's actually a consonant beat, so that doesn't even matter. You can go anywhere you want. So just be careful of what beats allow what kind of dissonance. All right, so far we've gone over 2 out of the 4 cases of dissonance. Passing tones, which we've kind of seen before, has just been expanded to quarter notes. Neighbor tones shouldn't be too much of a surprise to you. They're pretty easy to just think about. You're going one note below. Lower neighbors are preferred to upper neighbors, but I'm not going to really be too strict on that because just neighbor tones aren't going to show up that much in general. But if you are going to neighbor tone, try and go below. It's just like, I don't know, a written rule somewhere. Just lower neighbors are better than upper. All right, and now we have the 2 trickier cases to go over what we can do for dissonances. So there's this special pattern. It is called a cambiata. All right, so we have neighbor tones, passing tones. I'm just going to erase that. I'm going to spell that out for you. It's a cambiata. All right. This is a special case of using a dissonant, and it is a pattern to follow, okay? So it is a 5-note figure, so 5 notes are involved. Okay, so that's going to be all 4 notes of your measure and then the 1 strong beat or beat 1 of the next measure. So it's always going to be starting on a beat 1, okay, of 1 measure and then bleeding into the next measure. So it's 5 notes. You're going to start, beat 1 is going to be consonant. Has to be consonant. Okay, so let's say, for example, we're going to take this D. Beat 1, we're going to start on a D. All right, and that's an octave. All right, so that's okay. Beat 1 is consonant. Beat 2 is going to be dissonant. Okay, beat 2 will be dissonant, and this is a pattern that you must follow. What you are going to do is leap down a down by step. Sorry, you're going to go down by step. So I'm going to go down, step for beat 2. So you're going to go from beat 1 and consonant and go down by step to beat 2. So here we go. That's going to go. And then this is going to be dissonant, right? So you can't do a cambiata. Let's say that you started on like, this is a consonant and this is like 6. If you step down and it's a 5, you can't be doing a cambiata. This is a special thing. So it has to be following these consonants and dissonant patterns, okay? Then we have beat 3, which is going to be consonant, okay? Has to be consonant. So again, this is a special pattern that we're following, and that means you're going to go down by third from there. So actually we're going to go from 7 into a 5. So I went a step down, a third down, and we have consonant, dissonant, consonant. All right, and then we have beat 4 in the pattern, and that's going to be a step up, and this has to be consonant. Okay, so up by step, and we're going to go up here to a B, and that's consonant, it's a 6. Let's say that our cantus just goes up to an E here. I know this is getting a little tight here. But beat 4 is again beat 5 is going to be the strong beat of the next measure. That also needs to be consonant, and that is another up by step, okay? So that would create a C right here, and you have a 6, all right? So this is a cambiata. This is one of the 4 cases of using a dissonant. You have to follow these procedures, okay? So beat 1 is a consonant. Beat 2 is the only dissonant. So please note your only dissonant is actually beat 2. And then you have a consonant, consonant, consonant. The way to do it is to just follow this procedure, down by a step, down by a third, up by step, up by step. And that is a cambiata. I don't know where the name of it came from. It is just the pattern that you're following. I will say again, the only beat of dissonance can be beat 2. So if we're following that pattern, let's say that if we were here, and let's say this isn't the first measure, so it's okay that we're not starting on a D. Let's say we, or actually, if we want to do a first measure, let's say that we're starting on an A instead of a D, okay? So we're starting on scale degree 5. Let's try this cambiata pattern again, right? So if I do A, which is a 5, we have our consonant beat 1, okay, so we're good. Beat 2, step down into a dissonant, okay? So that's a 4, so we're good, right? You stepped into a dissonant, so we're good. And then what we need to do, beat 3, we have to go down a third and make sure that's consonant. So this is where an issue arises. What do we have here? We actually have a dissonant. So that means that we cannot use this prescription. We can't use a cambiata in this case, all right? So again, let's try it with a different one. Let's say, again, let's not say that this is beat the first measure. Let's just say that we're starting on like an F. Okay, so it's the third, it's a consonant. So we're good. Let's go to beat 2, a dissonant, step down into a dissonant, that's okay. Beat 3, step down by a third. Oh, this is a 7th. Third needs to be a consonant, so that means, again, we can't really do a cambiata. So if you think through all of the possibilities, the only time that we can do a cambiata is actually if beat 1 is an octave. Because the hardest thing is this down by third into a consonant, and the only way that, like, if you think about it hard enough, which you can just go home and think about that, 7 down a third will land you on 5. But if you were on a 2 down a third, that lands you on 7. If you're on 4 down a third, that lands you on 2. If you're on a 7th, if you're on a 7th down a third, then 5. So your only option actually to do a cambiata is if your beat 1 is actually an octave. There is going to say, I know further on one of your homeworks, I'm going to ask you to write one of these. So I hope that this is a nice layout. I will probably talk about it again and show you more stuff. So remember, I also have this written in your handout. So beat 1 is consonant, beat 2 is a dissonant, consonant, 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 and then you have to move in these motions, the down by step, down by third, up by step, up by step. All right. Cool, that is a cambiata. Our last prescription for dissonances, so that was number 3 out of 4 of how we can use a dissonant, is a double neighbor figure, okay? So I'm gonna write that, that's double neighbor. I'm gonna actually write it here. Double neighbor figure, okay? All right, so your double neighbor can only happen in the second to last measure. So I don't want to see this figure anywhere else except for the one before, like, your whole note. So actually we are counting this whole note measure. So let's say this is the end of it, right? This is your last measure. This can only happen in your second to last measure, okay? So let's say this is actually an E here, right? This is your second to last measure. So double neighbor can only happen in the second to last measure, okay? Beat 1 is consonant, okay? Beat 2, consonant, sorry. Beat 2 will be dissonant. Beat 3 will also be dissonant. So this is actually going to be the only time that you're going to have 2 dissonances in a row. At all your other times, you should never have 2 dissonances in a row. And then beat 4 is going to be consonant. Okay, and I'll show you the prescription for this. A double neighbor is kind of exactly what it sounds like. You're going to be doing neighboring the same note but twice. So I'll just show you it. It's easier to just see it. So let's say that we're on a C here, okay? This is a double neighbor, so this is going to be a 6. A double neighbor means that you're going to step up 7, that's a dissonant. Step down a third, 6. Oh, sorry, 5. Oh, I guess, yeah, okay. And then 6. So here, it's allowed to be 2 dissonances in a row. In this case, this is a consonant, that's okay too. Either way, it's just this note figure that I'm worrying about, but if you end up with 2 dissonances in a row, that's okay. So it's exactly what it looks like, right? So you're just double neighboring the C. So you go C, up, below, and back to C. It's kind of like, you know, da-da-do-do-do, right? Fortunately, this also works with our cadence pattern, right? This is 6, 7, 1 for scale degrees, so that's good, right? So that's a double neighbor figure. You go above, you go below, and go back to it. So it's like I almost think about it that you're like twittering around a note or something. You're just kind of like going around a note, right? You can also do it in the other way. So let's say if you want to go a double neighbor below, you can go below to a B and up to a D. So you go, you know, so it's still a double neighbor, you're still just doubling your C's. A way to make sure that you're doing a double neighbor correctly is actually beat 1 and 4 are going to be the same note, right? Because you are like doubly neighboring your notes. So instead of going like C, B, C as a normal neighbor, you're actually just throwing in that double neighbor, right? Or flipping that in the middle. In this case, I guess these two weren't dissonant. That's okay, because this is allowed. It's still a double neighbor figure. But if it so happened that you had 2 dissonances in a row, that's also okay. And then also, actually, this pattern works for a cadence as well, right? This is 1, 7, 1. But a double neighbor can only happen in the second to last measure, and it's okay if you have 2 dissonances in a row. Just think about it that you're neighboring 2 notes. Okay. All right, those are your 4 dissonances. So we have passing tones, neighbor tones, combiata, which is that special formula, and your double neighbor, which can only happen in the second to last measure. All right, I think we are almost done with all of the rules. The last thing to talk about is parallel octaves and parallel fifths. All right, so parallel octaves and parallel fifths are forbidden only between certain notes. So let's say we have a D here. And again, this is like the beginning, right? And we're gonna go to an E. Let's say we go to an E. So we can't have an octave between, let's say, how do I want to do this? Let's do this. Yeah, sure. So we have an octave here. You can't have octaves between 2 beat 1s. That's a no. Or fifths, right? So even if this was an A here and A here, and this means that we need a B here. Let's say you just kind of whatever. Sure, that'll work, right? So this is a 5, and then this is a 5. So there's no 2 octaves or fifths between beat 1 and beat 1. All right, so that's one thing that's not allowed. Another thing is actually beat 3 of this measure and beat 1 of this measure. So that means, let's say that we did a neighbor tone here. So we have an octave, 7, 8. That's okay, that's a neighbor tone, right? That's a neighbor tone dissonant on beat 2, so that's allowed. And then let's say that we actually go F and then E, right? So this is beat 3 and beat 1, 2 octaves. All right, sorry about that. My SIM card actually ran out of space. So thankfully that's like the last little thing to be going over, which is the parallel octave. So I did say at least you got beats 1 and 1 of one measure, right? We already saw that. And then what I was going to say is beat 3 of this measure and beat 1 of this measure, your octaves and fifths are not allowed. So again, I think I had this 8, 7, 8 neighbor tone, right? And then we had actually that this was an 8. What did I do? I think I did an F here, right? So that's a 3, that's okay. And then we have an 8 no, that's 1 and 1. Actually, yeah, it doesn't matter. This is the same, so this is actually beats 3 and 1 are not okay, right? And then we had 1 and 1 are not okay. So actually, this is like doubly not okay because you have beat 1 and 3 and 1 violating that rule. And then last but not least, you actually can't have beat 4 and 1. So this is an 8 and an 8. So let's say, sure, we did this. Yeah, 8, 6, 7, 8, right? So this is beat 4 and 1, 8 and 8, right? So those are the only cases. So actually, if you want me to just write out a nice little list for you, it's kind of nice to visually see it. It's from beat 1 to beat 1 of the next measure, beat 3 and 1 of the next measure, and then beat 4 and 1 of the next measure that you can't have 2 8ths or 2 5ths in a row. So these are what we're calling the parallel octaves and the parallel fifths. So that means that it's actually okay between beats 1 and 3, beats 2 and 4, 4 of this beat to 2 on this one, 4 to 3, anything. So it's just these combinations that we can't have 2 8ths or 2 5s in a row, okay? So just make sure, I kind of just encourage you that once you've written out your example to just kind of backtrack and then just check between each beat 1 and 1, beat 3 and 1, and beat 4 and 1 and stuff like that. All right, sound good. All right, so that was the last little tiny bit that I needed to talk about for rules. I think I've been through all of the rules. I'm sorry this video is longer than the other one. This got a lot of rules going on. Great, so now we are actually going to move to an actual example on staff paper. All right. Great. All right, I hope this is a little bit better than last time. I already wrote out a cantus here. I tried to zoom it in a little bit closer because I understand the staff paper is a little bit harder to see, and I put it in the middle so that way it doesn't get cut off. All right, sound good? So I already wrote in a cantus. D major is actually like the beginning that I was using earlier. I did run out of space, but this is going to be a whole note measure anyway, so actually I'm just going to put that in right away, right? You can always do that. Just identify your key and throw your, 1 right there. And then that's an octave, right? So, again, I always just say figure out a cadence if you would like to. So we can do stepping up 6 7 1, 1 7 1, 3 2 1, 7 7 1, 2 2 1. You'll end up just memorizing them. If not, you have that little worksheet that will remind you as to what everything is. So let's just do 6 7 1. All right. I know this is kind of little. This one's a little squished. I'll be a little bit more spaced out earlier here. So this is actually a 6, and then this is a 5. So actually this works fine, right? So again, I'm going to say it one more time. These numbers, 6, 7, 1, the cadence has to do with the scale degree, 6, 7, 1. And then this has to do with your intervals. These are both consonants, so it's okay. I actually find working forwards to back, forwards into it is actually just the easiest. You have so many notes to play with. Your high notes, your high point, you have a lot of space. Because if you think about it with first species, if you have a bunch of whole notes, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 possible notes actually, and then 3 of those are part of your cadence. So you really have 5 notes to try and figure out where to put a high point. Whereas we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times 4. We have like 24 notes to get in a high note. So it's like a little bit extra play. So cadence is all set. You're approaching your octaves from contrary motion. The contrary motion thing has to be only for your strong beat octaves. Weak beat octaves or weak beat or beat 3 octaves, again, just like second species, don't have to worry about the contrary motion. It's just on those beat 1s, contrary motion is really important. All right, let's start. I'm gonna actually just start on, let's start on beat 2. Let's start on beat 3, just for fun. Why not? And I'm going to start on octave. So I'm going to start with 8. So again, you can only start on scale degree 1 or 5. This is scale degree 1. Let's just try, we can do a passing tone dissonant. Yeah, why don't we do that? Let's do a passing tone dissonant. So let's put a C here, C sharp, 7. Passing tone, again, still no leaping over your bar lines. So your options are either D or B. Obviously you can't do a D because otherwise that's going to be a seventh, so that's a no. But we can do a passing tone dissonant, right, into a 5. So sometimes I might just point to it and I'll say that was passing tone. Again, passing tone can happen on any of the beats, doesn't matter. It's the neighbor tones that can be 2 or 4. All right, 5. It's kind of nice. You actually have a little bit more freedom of what you want to do, okay? So let's say we do 5, B, let's keep it a little stepwise. Let's just actually do that. So this is, again, a passing tone, and that's okay. It's on beat 3, but passing tones are allowed on any beats. Your octave's okay, and then this lands on a 3. So I just did stepwise just to keep it easy. It's whatever you want. If you wanted to skip around, that's all right. Let's do, why don't I just show you a neighbor tone, okay? Oh, again, your high point can't be in this measure. That's still the same rule, right? Sorry, meant to mention that. Still, I mean, it's just carrying over. Let's do a neighbor tone dissonant. Yeah? Sure. So that's a neighbor tone. Again, neighbor tone can only happen on beat 2 or 4. All right, so this is allowed. 3. Let's actually maybe think our G might be a nice high point here. But can we do that? If we put a dissonant there, unfortunately, we have to make that a passing or a neighbor. I guess we could make that a neighbor tone. Let's do that actually. Though usually people want to keep it as a lower neighbor. So I personally don't like 2 neighbors in the same measure, because do you see how this is a neighbor tone and then we get a 6 there? And that's okay, 3 and 6, you're consonant there. But this is an upper neighbor and it's 2 neighbors in the same measure. It's not necessarily wrong, you could do that, but I personally don't like that. I don't think that's the best way to write a counterpoint. So let's, why don't we do an A? No. Let's wait. Maybe let's try and get a high point over here. I'm starting to not really like our options. What if we did... We could have some fun. Sorry, I'm thinking through a couple different options. You could do, if we did an E here, we'd have to do a passing to a D, and that's not okay. Could skip down to a D and up to an E, but unfortunately that would be direct fifths. Could skip to a C, a B, go up to a C. Let's do that. That's kind of a large leap. B to F sharp, that's not a tritone, so that's good. So B is the 6th, and you have to step up. So again, this is a 5th, and I stepped down, I skipped down, stepped up, right? So that's how you fill in or correct your leaps, and then this ends up being a 3rd. Let's just try, I want to try and get back up for a high point that beats this F, okay? So let's just try stepwise. Sometimes when I'm trying to get higher, I'll just try stepwise and just see how that goes. All right, so fortunately this actually works 5, 5, 6, and then, oh yeah, we got a G, that's an octave, and that's okay. All right, I'm gonna use this opportunity to show you a cambiata. All right, so again, it's the only, oh, also, sorry, I wanted to label that this is a passing tone. Cambiata, right? So what we do, it can only happen if your strong beat is an octave. Also, we approach this octave into contrary motion, right? I just want to show you what it is. I'm going to label it cambiata. Ada is going to happen in this measure, okay? So beat 2 is going to be the only dissonant. What you do is beat 1 is consonant. Go down a step, 7. Go down a 3rd, 5. Go up a step, 6. And go up a step, 8. Ooh! We actually cannot do a cambiata here because now we have an octave here and an octave here, unfortunately. But that would be a cambiata, but I did not foresee that that was going to cause an issue like that. Okay, so that was a good example of a cambiata. That doesn't work. But I'm happy that I was able to show it to you. So again, I mean, you're living the struggles with me. That counterpoint, sometimes things just don't happen. Okay, why don't we just step down maybe 7, 6, 5. Again, I'm just gonna label this as a passing tone, right? I would like to go to a C, but I can't do a C because guess what? This is 2 5s in a row between beat 4 and beat 1. And I can't step up to an E because that's a 7th. So actually, let me go from 6, maybe leap a little bit. Let me go to, oh, let's just go down to B, E to B, that's a 3rd. This is a 4th leap, so I want to correct it by going up to a C, and that's actually okay because that's contrary motion into your 5. Great, and then we have just a couple more things to fill in. 6. Let's try, could I go into an A? A is not okay. Let's go, I don't like that either. Actually, I'll show you a upper neighbor. Again, we don't really like upper neighbors, but I'll do it just to show you that they do exist and it's okay. Go back up, you got a 6, and then that way we can just go to a C here, to a 6, and then maybe, sorry, I had to sneeze. I mean, we could do a double neighbor figure, which again can only happen in this measure, but I just kind of want to show you a very nice, maybe if I actually did this, are you ready? Change my cadence a little bit and do a half note C, which would count as 7, 7, 1. And then just go to a 5, 6, 5, 6, and that's totally okay. So let's see, this looks good, but I want to just double check. Make sure first that your beat 1s of every measure is consonant. We have a 5 approached with contrary motion, 3, 3, 8 approached with contrary motion, 5 again approached by contrary motion, 6 and 8. So that's okay. I like to check for parallels next, so that has to be between beats 1 and 1. So 5, 3, 3, 8, 5, 6, 8. Okay, that's fine. Beat 3 and 1, so beat 3, 7, that doesn't matter. 3, 5, 6, 5, 8, 6, 5, 7, 6. Yeah, everything's okay. And then beat 4 and 1 at 8, 3, 7, 5, 6, 3. Okay, so that's all good. I have a high point right here. It is not in this one. It's on a beat 1. Again, your high point can't be on beat 2 or 4. It has to be beat 1 or 3. Any leaps that I had, I corrected. I did label these. You don't have to label your dissonances, but I just wanted to let you know. We experienced trying to do a cambiata, but then unfortunately not being able to. So yeah. Okay, great. I'm just going to cut this video and then I'm actually going to play this on my keyboard so that way you guys can hear what it sounds like, alright? Alright, so see that very soon.